Hey guys, welcome to the Restless Podcast. I'm your host, Elia Esparza. I'm a recording artist, songwriter, content creator, and just another 20-something trying to figure it all out. We'll be sharing the stories of creatives, entrepreneurs, and young successful people on how they got to where they are and the risks they took to get there. I'm recording this at the wonderful Beacon Hill Recording Studios. And if you're interested in keeping up with us day to day, you can follow us on our social media at Restless Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, tell your friends about us, and rate us. Let's get on with the show. Our next guest is a force to be reckoned with. Currently a host, writer, and producer of NowThis, he's interviewed people from Apple CEO Tim Cook to Microsoft's Satya Nadella, along with traveling all over the world, being a plant dad, and hosting his own show, Contextual. He still manages to catch a Broadway show, travel all over the place, and conquer the many challenges of being a creative in today's industry. An El Paso, Texas native, Latin-style icon, and one of my very best friends in the whole entire world, I give you Alejandro Alba. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was an amazing intro. I'm going to steal it and make it my bio online.
Yes. I've been perfecting the craft, especially since I know
hired.
you. So I'm super excited to have you on the show because I think a lot of people know about you. You're definitely growing so much on social media, especially being on NowThis. But I want to start from the very beginning. So let's start from where you were young and kind of how you grew up in El Paso and how you've kind of gotten to New York, where you are now.
Sure. How early do you want me to start?
Well, did you always want to be in journalism, or did you have other ideas, or what was your, as a child, what were your ideals?
Right. Yeah. So no, I haven't always wanted to be a journalist. I actually wanted to be a doctor or an actor, which are two completely different things.
Very.
But I've always wanted to be an actor. But I think I would say that I wanted to be a doctor growing up because it was a safe bet. You go to school for it, you get a great job, you become rich, all the stereotypical things that you hear about becoming a doctor. And so I think I would always say that because it was a safe choice.
So how did you discover your passion, or how did you decide to kind of go into journalism?
I hated the news growing up. I genuinely hated the news. And my parent, my dad specifically, and my grandfather would always have a newscast playing in the background. And I remember just getting so much anxiety from it because hardly ever it was good news. Mm-hmm. And so I would just despise it. But I think I found my way into journalism through kind of performance and theater and all that. I'm actually going to backtrack there.
No, that's fine.
So I think the kind of journalism came to me as opposed to me choosing it. It chose me. It started in high school. I decided to take a yearbook class because it was the closest thing to newspaper or anything. And the first day of sophomore year, if I recall correctly, or junior year, I think it was junior year actually, an upperclassman just came in, looked at me, and she's like, "Hey, you want to do the announcement?" And I didn't even say yes because I was extremely overwhelmed because she was basically yelling at me. But I think as I was going to respond, it sounded like a yes. So she just took me by the arm and she dragged me to the library where they do the school announcements. And she's like, "Okay, you're going to read this list." And it was basically just saying good morning and then what's on lunch, available for lunch. If there's a school pep rally, who's playing who, and all that. And I think that was the first time that I really started kind of fostering the idea of going into journalism because I like presenting and reading the news. So it's very different when you're on the other side of the desk, So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
So after graduating high school, you go to UTEP, and what was your major in?
I graduated with a major in multimedia journalism and a minor in creative writing. Again, because I thought that was just the safest thing to do. If I had the opportunity to do it again, I would definitely get a different major. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I quickly found out that journalism is, you learn better by going out and working at a newsroom. So you learn more through practice as opposed to like, open the book to page 3 and we're going to learn how to write a headline. That just doesn't work that way. I mean, you will learn the very basics with that, but you kind of need to be in the newsroom to fully grasp everything. And I was lucky enough to get an internship between junior and senior year at a journalism program at UTEP, actually, and then which led me to get a job between graduating high school and starting college at KVIA. I was working through a third party. I was getting paid through like a third party company, but I was able to do basically everything that a entry-level producer was doing. So that was kind of a great experience. And so by the time that I got to school, I kind of, had the gist of it, of like what I was going to be learning. So I was kind of like always seeking more.
So would you say, like, not that you didn't like your experience, getting your major in that, but would you say experience in the real world, in a real work setting where you're hands-on, is a better way to kind of dive into that?
Yeah, and not to knock down on like the education system or my teachers or anything of that, because I'm like, go to college. You'll learn a lot. Like, the only reason I said like I would have gotten a different career is because like I went in already knowing what I was going to learn. So I would have liked the opportunity to learn something else at the same time. Like, I would have still pursued journalism, but I would have gotten maybe a major in economics or political science. And so, have yet another skill set on the side that could help my journalism.
Right. Okay, so tell me how you transitioned from going to UTEP and then, going to London for school and then going to DC afterwards and then eventually making your move to New York. Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah.
What steps did you take?
So I was trying to fast track my college experience because I wanted to just, become an adult so bad, I guess. It wasn't so much of like leaving El Paso. I just kind of wanted to get on with the show.
Right.
And so I was working crazy hours and taking like 21 credit hours per semester, and then summer school, and then those like winter semesters, which is like in between, I don't know, in like January and like the beginning of the spring semester.
Okay.
It's like an intense like 3-week class or something like that. So I was basically just doing anything to get me out of school faster. And the day I went in, I had everything to graduate in 3 years, and I went in to take to grab the graduation application, and I was filling it out. And as I was doing that, I just had an epiphany, and I realized that I didn't have a plan afterwards, which is not always a bad thing, but for me at that time, it just gave me a lot of anxiety. And I realized that I was, kind of cutting myself short, because as a student, you have a lot of benefits and you have a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of scholarships out there that go unnoticed, unclaimed. And so I realized that I was just not ready to graduate. So I tore up the application, and I started looking into study abroad programs. Because a friend of mine had told me that there was a scholarship that they give to Latino students, and that a lot of people don't usually apply for it. And so I applied for the scholarship, and I got it. And so that led to me for me to go to London for 6 months and study abroad. And the great thing about that is that since I had been done with all my coursework already, all the classes that I took abroad were just for shits and giggles. Like, they were just fun classes.
So just for like the experience of being able to go to school
they were
over
just
there.
electives, and I mean, I learned a lot, but I also learned a lot through just going to other cities, and learning about other cultures and just other students and their upbringings and comparing them to my upbringing, and just, it was a really, really great experience. So first advice of this podcast is try to leave your city. Even if it's not for you, you'll learn that. And it's very valuable information to learn what's good for you and what's not good for you. But always try to leave.
Yeah, I always tell people, even if you want to come back to wherever you're from, your hometown, like, it's so good. There's no experience like traveling and experiencing other cultures, other cities, other states. So I love that. Okay, so you're in London. You give yourself an extra 6 months of school, which is awesome because you obviously went, from knowing you, I know you were working so hard when you were going to UTEP and all of that. And I remember that specifically, like, even when I would come and visit, you were always like, I have school, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So do you feel like you got the college experience that, like, people imagine it to be, or do you feel like you worked so hard that you kind of bypassed that?
I definitely bypassed it. And I mean, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be getting that typical college experience with, the Greek life and campus dorm living and all that. Not only because I feel like UTEP didn't have that at that time. I don't know about now. I feel like it's gotten so much bigger. It's a beautiful campus now. But I don't know if that college life would have been for me either way. I try to like kind of reimagine myself at like 18, 19 and see like if I would want to participate in like,
the stereotypically,
like yeah. And I was like, I mean, I'm sure I would find my clique, no matter what. But I don't know. I think UTEP is such a commuter school that experience kind of gets lost either way.
Yeah.
So it's like you will most likely still be hanging out with your friends from high school,
right?
Middle school, elementary. Like, the people you grew up with are most likely the people you're still going to hang out with.
Exactly.
Like, you'll find a couple of people here and there, but they're also really good friends with the people they grew up with. And so it's kind of like you foster the same behavior and culture.
Yeah.
As opposed to this, like, stereotypical, like, I'm going to go pledge and get hazed. Like, I just don't think that lives in UTEP.
Yeah.
Or not, at least at the time that I was there.
Okay.
It's a very different experience.
Yeah. So you go to London, and then what's your plan after that? What happens?
So right before I went to London, I actually also submitted an application for internship in Washington, D.C. with Scripps Howard. And it's a publisher. It's a news publisher, and they own a lot of newspapers around the nation. And so the internship was going to be reporting off of the White House and Congress and just a few other events that happen in Washington, D.C. So while I was in London, that got finalized and I got admitted to the program. So when I finished in London, I came home. I went back to El Paso for like a week. I think it was the week of New Year's. And then got on a plane to go to Washington, D.C. and start a whole new program. And that was also super fun and extremely insightful into like what I was going to be doing, for the rest of my career, potentially. And it was an amazing experience. I couldn't have asked for like a better experience, like just right before I graduated, because I got to go into the White House press briefing room during the Obama administration. I was inside the White House covering events that Michelle Obama would host.
Wow.
And she would MC, and like Janelle Monáe was there, or sometimes the Olympians like would go after they got, whatever medals they were being awarded, or just they were being awarded different just awards. Yeah, it was a very surreal experience. Also because it was a program that like you just get extremely spoiled in terms of like living expenses. So you're basically just in DC going full in your career, and then once you're done, you literally get to take your mind off of things because you're not yet like a full journalist where like you're on 24/7.
Right.
You're always like looking at the news cycle and whatnot. I mean, you do that either way, but like you don't have to come in at midnight if news break. Like we were students, like we were under strict regulations of like how many hours you could work. But then you go and explore DC and you get to hang out with other young professionals and see what, being in the political sphere is like. And it was a great experience.
That's amazing. So going off of that experience, like, how did you transition to New York?
When I was in Washington, D.C., we came to New York for a conference. And at the conference, there were two reporters from BuzzFeed. And they were kind of just taking resumes or just giving advice to students and whatnot. And so I remember, like, going to them and walking up to them, just asking them about BuzzFeed. Actually, no. Okay, so when I was at Washington, D.C., I mean, obviously everyone was reading BuzzFeed back in 2014. Like, it was just like the cool new thing, and everyone was taking their quizzes, and it's kind of like the early days of quizzes.
Yeah, it was the prime time.
Yeah, and like everyone loved the listicles. And so they had a community page where anyone could make an account and create their own content. And I remember that sometimes, like during our lunch breaks, like we would just talk about BuzzFeed, and we'd be like, "Oh my God, did you see that listicle on BuzzFeed?" And they were like, "Oh my God, you should do one." And so I did a couple. And so when we went to New York for the conference, and I saw the two reporters from there, I got really excited, and I just gave them my resume. And sure enough, that resume was passed on to the director of fellows, and they reached out to me to see if I wanted to be part of their fellowship. And we interviewed, and after a few interviews, I was told that if I wanted it, I could go. I could come to New York and be a fellow. And it was a 4-month program, and I think it was a great way to introduce me to New York City because I met amazing people, some that I'm like really good friends with now to this day, and it's been 5 years later. And I think also just learning a different side of the industry I'm in. I was at school. I learned how to do print journalism and a little bit of TV broadcasting. But there was this, it was the dawn of the digital age, and so I really didn't know anything about digital journalism and clicks and views and engagement and all that, terrible, terrible things we have to deal with now.
All the things that run our lives now. Yeah.
All that data that runs our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But it was amazing to have all that new information under my belt, and specifically with a company that was kind of leading the way in the digital front.
So you're at BuzzFeed, yeah, and then so you moved to New York, incredible new opportunity. You're at BuzzFeed, and then what happens?
Life happens. Rude awakening for starstruck Alejandro going into New York, because at the 4-month mark, the fellowship was going to be over, and they basically were going to try and keep us all. But the reason I went into BuzzFeed is because BuzzFeed News was being developed as I got hired. And so by the time that the 4 months came to an end, that position that they kind of had told me about that I could go into didn't really exist. So, so I didn't get to stay at BuzzFeed after the 4 months, and I was employed for 6 months, which was terrible. Because you basically, so I sold my car. I had like all my savings used to move to New York. And then finding an apartment in a week. I actually stayed in your couch when I first moved to New York.
I remember.
I stayed in your couch for a week, and I was running around Astoria trying to find an apartment in under a week. So then by the time that I started at BuzzFeed, I had somewhere to stay. And yeah, so like those 4 months, I also just worked so hard trying to, you know, make the best content, hashtag content, and like make it go viral and all that, you know. Again, terrible things of like how the internet works nowadays. And yeah, like I was just running without having a single direction. And so when all of a sudden like this just rug gets swept under my feet of just, you don't have a job anymore and you're in this brand new city with no new friends. You were like the only friend I had.
Yeah.
And you worked during the weekends and I worked during the weekdays. So like we hardly ever got to see each other.
Yeah. Even though we lived so close to each other.
I know. We were a 5-minute walk from each other.
Yeah.
But it was just the first time that I really had to go through that, you know, unemployment. And in my head, unemployment was something that doesn't happen to you until you're in your 30s or 40s. And no, it happens very often. I mean, it's happened to me several times now because journalism is just, it's a revolving door oftentimes. But yeah, so I was employed for 6 months, had some depression. I was diagnosed with insomnia. I got alopecia and shingles because of how anxious and like I had a nervous breakdown basically. Because I just had been running for like a year and a half, and then I finally had time to reflect upon everything that I had done and just like moving from city to city to city. And I mean, most of it was good. It was all like great experiences, but still like now I didn't have something to like work for. And I think that for me was just very eye-opening in the sense of like life is not always going to be like rainbows and like you're not always going to have a job. You're like the safety net of being a college student living at home with your parents is no more. Like now you have to fend for yourself. You have to figure it out, and you can't give up. You have to keep pursuing whatever goal you have. There's going to be hardships, but if you persist, you know,
so
you have the motivation, you'll get there.
Yeah. And I mean, I clearly remember the struggle for sure. So you're in this, so it seems to me like, you know, looking over what you've told us so far is like, you always had a plan of action. You always kind of had everything planned out. And now that you came to this moment where it's taken away from you and you're, you know, struggling with depression, insomnia, anxiety, what motivated you, or what did you do to help you kind of get out of that and kind of face reality?
I think my stubbornness, but also just incredible amount of support from my parents. My parents have always told me, no quites el dedo de renglón, which is like translated to English would just be like, don't give up. I didn't use any of the words from Spanish. I didn't translate the words. I just translated the meaning.
Yes.
But it's basically just don't give up. And so I think that, and, you know, a lot of people were expecting me to just go back to El Paso. And I was like, what? I don't have anything in El Paso either other than my family. But like career-wise, I came here for like my profession. And, you know, it's going to be the same looking for a new job over there and looking for a new job here. But the difference is that I'm in like journalism mecca here. Like all the big companies are here. So I should stay here longer and look for another another, publication. And I think it was like my 10th day of like not sleeping. I had like binge watched like all the CW programming.
Yeah.
It was great. I could tell you anything. And so, yeah, it's just like, this is unhealthy. This is unlike me. Like I need to get moving. And so I made a list of all the publications that I wanted to apply for. I started emailing them, just like cold open, no, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone professionally in the city. So I couldn't, use good old nepotism to get my next job. It took me 6 months to eventually find a job at the New York Daily News, which to me came as a surprise because I thought they would not hire someone from El Paso, Texas. But thankfully, having BuzzFeed on my resume caught their attention. They're like, oh, so you know how to make things go viral. And I was like,
oh, here we go.
I think I do. Yes, I do. And so, by the way, never use I think. Just say you do. Fake it till you make it is great advice. It's centuries old, good advice.
I love it. That's my whole life, just faking it until I make it.
It works. But here's the thing, though, because as you're faking it to make it, you are learning.
Yeah.
And you're learning like 10 times faster than what you would originally without any motivation to actually show people that you can do it. So I think it's just kind of like a quick route to it's like the Spark Notes, of learning. But yeah, so I think it was just, motivation. I had to, some days it's tough. Some days you wake up in bed and knowing that you don't have to be anywhere at no specific time. It's really easy to just lay there and feel bad for yourself and blame the universe and, eat shitty food that's going to make you feel 10 times worse.
Yeah. So you get your job at the New York Daily News, and then eventually you leave there and you transition to a freelance, correct?
Well, no. So yeah, I got the job at the New York Daily News. I was there for 2.5 years, survived a couple rounds of layoffs. And the third one, they were offering buyouts, which they basically pay you to quit, and give you benefits for 2 months. So I took it because I was already planning to leave. And so I took the buyout. Thankfully, that same week that they were going to offer the buyouts, I was offered another job at Vocative, which is no more. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, so I went in to quit at the New York Daily News. And I made a meeting with my senior, with my editor, and I was like, hey, so I'd like to put in my 2 weeks notice. And he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, no, yeah, this is me telling you right now that I'm quitting.
I'm breaking up with you.
I'm giving you 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're not. And then he just walked out of the room. And I was like, what the hell? No, this is not how it's going to go. And I was going to run after him. And as I'm walking out of the conference room, the owner of the paper comes out and he's like, yeah, everyone gather around. So we're going to have to do another round of layoffs, but we're going to be offering buyouts. And I just turned to my editor and he just kind of smirks at me. And I'm like, oh my God, he just saved me from quitting and not getting any compensation.
Yeah. Wow.
He was actually looking out for me. So that was kind of nice. Sometimes you don't always have to get super along with that person for them to help you. People sometimes are in it just for, keep it profesh.
Keep it profesh.
Yeah, no, people are always looking out for you. So I think that's, it's always important to foster relationships. But, so then I went to Vocative and I was there for 6 months before I got laid off again.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was laid off for 6 months again. I think actually a little bit longer this time around. And this time I knew that I couldn't just sit there and, apply for jobs. Like I have experience. I could be writing on the side. And so I started doing freelance work with magazines like Men's Health. I was doing videos for startup companies like Roman. And then I was doing daily articles on tech for Gizmodo. And that helped me kind of survive in New York City. And I was new to a relationship, and so that's expensive, and so I needed to be working in order to be going out on dates and whatnot.
Even just like daily living in New York is not cheap. So I really quick, I just want to take a step into that of like all this is happening, and how's your personal being? Like how's your mindset? How's your soul? How's your like you said, relationships? Like how are you maintaining all of that along with working so hard every single day, and like living in a basement, basically?
Well, now that you mention it, I lived in a basement with one window that was maybe like, I don't know, 8 by 8 inches. Like it was just a diamond shaped frosted window. So by the time any sunlight went through it, it was extremely diluted. You could wake up at 5 p.m. Let's make it earlier. You could wake up at 3 p.m. Actually, it doesn't matter because you could wake up at any time during the day and you won't know where you are or what time it is. But anyway, so that didn't help my situation. But it was a pretty shitty time. I had 2 grandparents who passed away in that time. And so I had 3 grandparents pass away within like 6 months of each other. So like that was going on. I had to like be traveling like in and out. And then like not having a job, living in a shitty basement apartment that looked like a 70s porn set because just like the internal was just not it's not cute.
Yeah.
It's not the aesthetic you think you're going to have when you move to New York, it's no Sex in the City.
Yeah. So that's the thing I just want to touch on is that I lived in New York for 6 years, and a lot of people, I mean, I romanticize it myself, even though it's super expensive and it's rough and you really have to have a lot of grit to be out there. But I think people who don't live there or have only visited don't understand like what it really takes to live in New York, and then what it takes to be almost anything, like in any career, because I'm sure journalism is a cutthroat industry where like if you're not on top of it, there's someone right behind you who's ready to do it.
Right. And I think that applies to any career you come and pursue in New York City.
Yeah.
Whether it's acting, whether it's fashion, whether it's finance, like there will always be someone.
There's someone ready.
At your footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. They charge you like 5 cents a breath here. Like, fun fact, just kidding, that's not a fact.
But like, almost
it feels like it. Like you're losing money as you walk around the city. Breathing.
Basically, yeah. And so you're going through like all of this in and out of jobs, new relationship, a lot of personal stuff happening. And yet, are you keeping a positive mindset? Are you still dealing with anxiety? How's all that going?
I am, but the anxiety is always there. But I think I was able to push it all aside and keep moving forward because I knew that I had been through it already once, and that was close to rock bottom. And so if I survived that, I could survive this, because this time around, I have the experience on my side. I could go out. I have connections already. I have a network of friends, friends that have become family, and a professional network. So I feel like I have, an army on my side of like, this is not a battle I'm going to go in alone. And I think that applies with a lot of things in any city. Like the longer you live or the more involved you are in the community, you start feeling like you create a safety net, you know, like if I were to like not have any, like if I were to like have lost my apartment, like I know I could have stayed with someone for like a short amount of time, you know?
Right.
Or like I knew most of the freelance gigs that I got were actually because of professional connections or friends that were like, hey, I actually know someone that's looking for a freelancer. Would you want to do it? And they would send it my way. And I would tell them, I'm like, well, I could write this. I can't write that. And like, then we would figure it out. And it would be a nice, you know, one-off here and there. Or like $500 there for a feature. And then like 120 here for like a quick like blog. And so I think that's what it was that helped me the second or third time around was knowing that I went through it once and survived, I could do it again.
That's a great, especially in a big city like that. So you're saying like number one, support system. By that time you had like friends and you had more connections and you use those to help you kind of survive because really we thrive in communities where we feel supported. That's amazing. Okay, so you're going through all this and then you end up at NowThis.
Yeah. And that was a very fun experience too, because they reached out to me and I knew about NowThis, but
can you tell us what NowThis is? Like for those of the listeners that don't exactly know.
So NowThis is the leading news publisher on all social media. If you've seen a video with yellow and white subtitles font over it, it's probably an NowThis video. There's a few other companies, I will not name them, big companies that have tried copying like our format and our font. But yeah. So we do anything from, we have a great political team, breaking news. We do originals, and that's the department I'm in. But I'll get to that. I mean, is that a good description for you?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'm sure everyone has seen it without even knowing that it's NowThis, but
true.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I got the job there like 6 months later, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I knew what I wanted to get out of it. And I was very straightforward during my interview process of what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I think it was the first time during the job interview that I was that straightforward. Because I feel like all the other interviews in the past or all the other jobs that I took in the past, I would just be like, oh, yeah, that seems right. I'll take that without really knowing. And probably I could have gotten more like a bigger salary or a bigger role or just more responsibilities, different responsibilities, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But with NowThis, I think it was the first time that I knew where I wanted to grow professionally. And I just asked them, I'm like, would I be able to do this? Sure, like this is part of my job description, but can I add this onto it? Or, you know, just kind of make it my own role. And they were really great in working with me, and they were very transparent, which I appreciated a lot because, you know, in a lot of places you'll get people that will lie to you straight to your face, tell you one thing, and then that's not what you signed up for.
But I feel like when you're super specific of your goal or like what you want to achieve, people respect that, you know? Like I feel like when because at that point you had already gone through so much that you're like, I'm not going to settle for less. I'm going to actually do what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think it's that, you know, not taking other people's BS. Because that's true. You're fully confident and you have enough experience under, you know, bad experience, unfortunately, that you're like, no, I'm not going to fall for that again. So you just need to be, you know, you need to speak up for what you want for yourself and for your potential future.
So what is your role?
It's been a year and a half now.
What's your role at NowThis?
It's changed a little bit, but currently I am a host and writer and producer. So just three different things, but it all comes down to the same thing. So I'm working for the originals team, and we're working on web series on a whole lot of different topics. Currently, I am on one called Contextual, and think about it as a tech explainer series with a set, like in a studio. We're behind a desk explaining a tech concept or a tech device. I've done stuff from like how to protect your identity online. Is monogamy real in the age of dating apps, smart vibrators with cameras, and VR porn? To my co-host has done things like how do microwaves work, and are sex robots the future in society?
Are they?
Yeah. So depends on who you are and where you live.
And where can we watch that? Where can we see Contextual?
So Contextual is available. You could actually type Contextual on Facebook and it'll pop up, or Google it will be the only hit that comes up. But we're also available on NowThis Future on YouTube.
Okay, awesome. So I feel like now backtracking to like when you originally wanted to be a doctor and an actor, you you're not a doctor, but you brought in that love of, performance in a sense.
Performing.
Onto the screen. So how does that feel to finally kind of be doing, like, I guess mixing your love of journalism and tech with being the online presence, like the face of your show?
Yeah. By the way, I still want to be an actor. So if there's any agents, casting directors.
I love it. Yeah.
Out there, producers, I'm available.
Alejandro Alba is ready.
At Mr. Alex Alba on all social media platforms. Slide into my DMs. Let's
slide.
talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I did end up bringing that element into journalism and as being a presenter, and I do like that medium a lot, that platform. And so yeah, right now I have my own show and I have to put on an act when I'm presenting because it's different from reading an op-ed or delivering, a final vote on net neutrality, which I've done a few explainers on that. And like, this is more of a fun show, but then, it's fun when I'm talking about monogamy, but then the next episode is about a 70-year-old having her identity stolen. And so I have to be serious with that. I had to find a different delivery for it. And so I did end up bringing back the acting into, and the minimal acting training I've had through theater in school and college. It's helped. It's helped with my performance as news personality.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So what advice would you give to someone who's interested in being in the media, whether it be journalism or a writer for entertainment or, anything in that field? What advice would you give to them?
Always have your own hustle going on the side. You can't fully rely on the industry or on a specific company, and not because that company will be back to you or for you. It's just like, that's just unfortunately where the industry is right now. It's just like a revolving door. Like, you never know when there's going to be cuts. It's always good to have like your own side project. I feel like, if a newsletter, a lot of people have newsletters and it turns out that maybe they got a job through that, or if they want to go into TV producing or like, web series, like, make your own and you'll have that on your portfolio. It might not be high quality, but the content is there and the motivation is there and the hustle is there, because it takes a lot of time to do something on the side.
It does. I feel like that could apply to like a lot of different industries as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, create your own opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Create your own opportunity because, even though we're like living in woke America, it takes a while for things to be corrected. And unfortunately, we're still seeing the opportunities go to the same people. So if these big platforms aren't giving it to you, make it yourself.
I love that. And what would you say to anyone who wants to move to New York?
You know, this doesn't apply to everyone, but if you are one of the lucky few who doesn't struggle at all when they move here, great for you. This message is not for you.
I don't think that exists, like, honestly.
I don't know. Well, when it comes to financial stability.
Okay, true. Yeah. But even then, I still think it's
you'll still struggle on some front. Yeah, just be prepared to struggle and learn from it. I feel like you shouldn't quickly just be rule things off because one thing didn't go according to plan. Just be prepared to face adversity and then keep moving forward.
I love that. And so now, what's your balance? How do you balance, creating all this content, being on your show, along with having a personal life and balancing your mental health and your physical health and maintaining a relationship?
Buying plants.
Oh, yes. Okay.
No, I mean, that does help a lot. But no, I think the balance, to bring it back to my interview with Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, I asked him how to avoid personal burnout and have an actually balanced work-life balance, how to actually balance your work and your life. And he said something that I'd been living it, but I hadn't put a word on it. And he said, it's not about creating a balance between your work and personal life or your social life. It's about creating a harmony. Ooh. And to me, that was just so eye-opening. I was like, oh, wait, yes, I do that. That's the perfect word, harmony. It's not a balance. Because I feel like I did finally get to the work-life balance that everyone seeks and that everyone
strives for, really.
Strives for. I feel like I have finally gotten there, but it's not a balance. It is a harmony in the sense that you can't fully be off on either front. You can't just shut off your social life, your personal life, because it always spills into your professional life and vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think it is about creating a harmony where the two just don't clash. And I think I found that through obviously trial and just trial and error with friendships, romantic relationships, professional relationships. I think you just start finding what you like, what you want to subscribe to, and what you don't. And then hanging on to the people that are supporting you and you can support them. Because I think it's equally unhealthy to have someone that's hating on you, bashing on you, as to have someone that doesn't want your support. I think it's good. Like you said, we grow and thrive in community. And so I think it's good to find your community, find your group of friends, find a partner that will be there for you no matter what. And then get a mentor. That's really hard. That's been really hard for me. Being able to find a mentor and keeping it. Because, you might think that they're a mentor and then there's, something else they want from you. Which is very unfortunate. And I mean, now there's been more conversations about that with the Me Too movement.
It's reality, though. It really
happening.
is.
Yeah. And it's just very, very unfortunate, but they are the things that we need to talk about because taking advantage of some young professional that really just wants to learn is not okay. But yeah, and other than that finding your community, finding your people, I like escaping the city. I strive to leave the city at least once a month. And I'm not talking about big old travel plans like Paris or Tulum. I mean,
we wish,
if that's an option, I'll do it. But I'm talking about just going 30 minutes upstate and going on a hike just to completely change the scenery and the people I interact with and I think that's refreshing. So I try to kind of take myself out of my comfort bubble, and then go put myself in another, comfort bubble, and then come back into the one that I'm in, like in and out daily.
That's great. Backtracking quickly to your interview with Tim Cook, which is Apple's CEO. How was that experience?
It was amazing. He is such a nice person. I was able to talk to him prior to our interview, just kind of off the record, and he inspired me so much in the sense of, you could tell when someone has so much passion behind what they do. And I'd like to believe that that's what I saw, and not just this like act of him like trying to sell the company. Because obviously that's like, he is the CEO of, Apple, but you could tell that he was really passionate about what he does, and that he's very motivated by the stories that people share with him, that customers share with him about the products and how, they've had an impact on their life. And it was just great to interview a fellow LGBTQ member in such a high leadership role, in a company that just has an impact worldwide. I thought that was just pretty awesome. He was a really, really nice guy.
That's so cool. And where can we catch those interviews with the CEO of Microsoft and Apple?
They are both on NowThis Future YouTube channel. But also you could just Google NowThis Tim Cook or NowThis Satya Nadella, and they'll pop up. Because they're also available on Facebook, but Facebook, it's hard to scroll and find and search things. So
yeah, exactly.
It's easier to do it on YouTube.
Yes. Okay, so this has been such an awesome interview. Please, sorry, we can cut this part out. This has been such an awesome interview. Please let us know where we can find you and where we can see your show and all of that.
Yeah, so my show is called Contextual, and that's CONTECHTUAL. And it's available on YouTube and Facebook Watch. On Facebook, you could just type in Contextual, and we have a page, so you could like and subscribe, and you'll get notifications every time there's a new video. And the same for YouTube. So you could just look for NowThis Future. And we have a few other shows that I want to also put in a shameless plug. We have a new one called What the Facts, and it's all about science bodies. So why mosquitoes bite you more than other people, or why you have to pee a lot when you're drunk. So it's really fun. And my colleague, he's going by Andy Dandy. He's the host of the show. He's really fun. So watch that. And then we have One Small Step, which is all about how to live in a sustainable world. It's all about sustainability, and there's an amazing host, Lucy Biggers, behind that show. So definitely tune in.
And what about your Instagram? Yeah.
Yes, as for me, you could follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Mr. Alex Alba. So it's MrAlexAlba. And fun story behind at Mr. Alex Alba. I go by Alejandro, but I chose Alex for my screen name because of character count, and because there's a DJ in the DR that has my full name as his handle. And I very politely asked him in 2014 if I could have the handle, and he's like, "No, thank you. No." He's like, "No, sorry." And I was like, "Well, thanks for responding."
Wow.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Also, it used to be, another fun fact, it used to be Señor Mr. Alex Alba, but people were reading the SR as Senior. So I had to change it to MR instead of SR, so now it's Mr. Alex.
You're like, I'm 22, I'm not a senior citizen.
Yeah. So I was like, well, that didn't work.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and make sure to follow Alex on all his socials, check out his shows, check out those interviews, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is nice. A nice Saturday afternoon combo.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe and rate us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Restless Podcast. Until the next episode, stay motivated, stay hungry, and stay restless.